Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's session. My name is Irina, and I'm the event planner for the Redmond Reactor Space. Before we get started, I have a few things to go over. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience as well as our presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Useful links will also be shared in the chat. This session is recorded and will be available in 24 to 48 hours on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. Which brings us to today's session. The session will run approximately 1 hour with questions throughout, and I'll now turn it over to the speakers for introductions.
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Irina. And this is Dmitry Kulko, Microsoft. And I'll start this agenda slide. Well, there is a reason why we decided to propose and deliver this session. And session is about how to secure onboarding on phishing-resistant authentication methods. The reason is our positive experience discussing and deploying proof of concept for these technologies in our customer environment. So customer asked, we delivered, we decided to share this story with the community. Well, we would like to start from a beginning, setting up a flow with authentication methods. What is especially wrong with a password and what stays behind passwordless methods? Well, as I said, we are going to bring here a real world scenario, and we will present that what the customer scenario is and what is a challenge, where are security gaps for secure MFA onboarding. Particular, the customer we're discussing started to employ people to be remote the whole working cycle, like from the first interview till the resigning piece of this working cycle. Well, customer found some security gaps, and we're going to discuss it in this presentation. We offer it to the customer to close the gap by implementing temporary access pass. This brand new technology, probably you heard about it, and we are going to present it more. We offer it to the customer to consider to implement for these new employees passwordless technology from the beginning. So we will present this approach and we will run great demos. Of course, we will pay attention to audit and monitoring. And besides the quick review, what we can get from audit and sign-in logs, we would be happy to present the Azure Active Directory Workbook that helps to understand how we implement TAP, how it used for passwordless authentication. That's the agenda, and we are ready to move forward to the explanation about password and phishing. And Pinky, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dimitri. Hello, everyone. This is Pinky. So let's look at why the password is bad. I think Microsoft has done pretty good job in past couple of years explaining what are the weaknesses that we see in the passwords. So first of all, as we all know, the user picks the password. In most cases, it will be a common password, so it's easier for them to remember. Like it could be their favorite car, favorite color, who knows, right? Well, that means someone can guess that easily or rebel through some of the known dictionary tag. When user enters the passwords or even sets the password, it goes through, like it travels through the wire, right? So any bad actor sitting in middle and listening those traffic can somehow replay those credentials as the users. Passwords are stored centrally in IDP. So in case of IDP compromisations, those passwords will be exposed. In this pandemic, So many organizations already experience this one through some of those known attack, WannaCry, ransomware. I'm sure that some of you already know about those one. As with all this weakness in the password, credential can be easily obtained through very common attack like a phishing attack. It is a popular social engineering method where attackers send some eye-catching offers and user falls for those offer and gives out their personal information like credentials. Based on some of the statistic that I was looking, 90% of data breach happens through the phishing attacks, which is a lot. And it's eye-opening. The 60% of those are through the identity exposure across the technology. With those stats, as you can imagine, the security challenge where organizations are using passwords for their user authentications and not the strong authentications matter. So just constantly educating and training their end user not to fall for those lucrative offer from their device or even social media, right? Using the weak authentications method in their organizations for maybe for the legacy app. With the daily increase, as we see nowadays, zero-day exploits, new variants, that's a huge challenge for organization to keep up and protect. Some of the cyber crime statistic that I was looking, it has been increased like almost 3 to 5 times more than that was like reported back in 2010. So let's look at in the next slides. What are the benefit using the strong phishing resistance authentications method? Microsoft recommends passwordless authentications, such as Windows Hello, Authenticator app, or FIDO key, because it addresses all those weaknesses that I just discussed, and it also provides the most secure sign-in experience to end users. For flexibility and usability, we recommend that you use the Authenticator app, Microsoft Authenticator app, since it provides the best user experience. It secures the user's authentications through the passwordless authentications, push notifications, time-based, one-time password, and security alert. In the recent announcement, I heard that you can also use Microsoft Authenticator app to basically generate the complex and unique password directly from the app, where some of your online accounts that does not support those methods. Phishing resistant and a strong authentications method is basically immune to attacker intercepting or tricking the end users. It's by the designs, it protects this privacy through the public and private key. In this authentications process, in this strong authentication process, IDP sends the client a nonce. This is only going to be signed by the private key that is stored on the client device. The private key basically is stored on client device, which is secure by the TPM device that is on the client systems, which is not basically shared to anywhere or even travel through the network. So as you can see that it is only accessible on client device, not stored anywhere else. User needs to make a gesture, such as like touching the FIDO key or enter the PIN or do some sort of biometric in order to fulfill, like give that consent for the further authentications. And same as that private key, have it stored and protected on the device. PIN and biometrics are also stored in that device and not stored on any of the IDP clouds or on the database. So in case of users getting spooled by like a fake ID, IDP, authentication will not be succeeded because the fake IDP is not part of the public private key schema and is not trusted by the device. So this is just the high level of how the passwordless method secures this credentials. If you're interested to learn more in depth, please watch this Ignite video from Tariq, where he explains a lot more in the details. So next, let's look at our customer scenario and the security graph that Dimitri can explain here.
Amazing. Thank you, Pinky. Thanks a lot. Well, that definitely something that we would like to go with. No password, no phishing, right? No brute forcing, etc. But first of all, as we said, would like to present for you a real world scenario. So, well, we have this customer. Customer is hybrid, which most customers are hybrid, right? And most users are synced from on-premises Active Directory. Well, Azure Active Directory authentication is password authentication, but doesn't matter for this case. For new employees onboarding, the customer uses own ID verification process, either in the middle of a screen, ID verification process. Well, I should say in a phishing resistant schema, we will continue to use ID verification process that the customer is responsible to. Well, good news, the process is very well defined by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. And actually, we will discuss it a little bit in a couple of slides. But still, ID verification process is a responsibility for the end customer. Well, in our case, step number one, this new employee runs ID verification session. Well, that usually it includes some like involvement of personally identifiable information that was collected in advance by human resources. And after we finish the step number one, that create the linkage between claimed identity and the real life existence, right? We have an evidence that user, this is new employee who we would like to welcome. And then today, our customer is going to offer to this new employee to pick up the password. Well, that's a first weakness that Pinky already explained us a few minutes ago. Human being is choosing the password, which could be quite predictable. Then this password is going to go through some networks, and we should say, well, theoretically, some man in the middle can like record this traffic, replay it in the right place, right time. Well, password is traveling. That's a fact, and password is going to be saved in the identity. Well, not password, maybe derivative. Maybe a derivative from a password is going to be saved in the identity provider database, which again theoretically could be compromised, and this derivative can be used as the vector of attack. Well, user picked up password, then this new employee, remember we're discussing real scenario for some customer, and like many customers, they follow with the same scenario. This new employee is using the instruction we gave him in advance, and the user is going to hit this my security info. Well, my security info is just a SaaS application, Microsoft SaaS application that uses Azure Active Directory as an identity provider. So user instructed to onboard MFA, onboard security factor, but user needs to authenticate after step number 4, right? So user is going to present to Azure Active Directory user principal name and password. Remember about shoulder surfing. right? User is typing password. When authentication is finished, user is going to be allowed to onboard MFA. Okay, well, the question from the customer, right? How we can be sure that the password provided by a legit user. Step number 5. How we know that the user is actually the same as used ID verification. So we've done this step up with ID verification. We got evidence about user identity, and then we accomplish step down, allowing user to authenticate with password. So the weak password could lead to the case when not a legit user is going to onboard multi-factor authentication. Well, customer was asking like, what is a secure method to onboard MFA for remote employees? Well, very first, of course, Microsoft would say, well, we recommend to use conditional access policy, securing security info registration. When the user action register security information can be granted just from trusted locations. Okay, customer said, well, remember, we're discussing employees who remote through the whole working cycle. They will never go on site. They will never work from trusted networks. They will never get VPNs for them. Okay, what if we would register security information only on trusted devices? Wait a second. Microsoft recommends that you require multi-factor authentication to register or join devices with the Azure Active Directory using conditional access. Okay, so to register MFA, we would like to require trusted device. To get trusted device, we recommend to use MFA. Well, there's chicken and egg situation. Like we are in a loop, and how we can break this loop? We need to add extra security factor, sensitive but trusted. And this is the next step to talk about temporary access pass. Pinky, please.
All right, thank you, Dimitri. So what is temporary access pass? And how we can leverage or use in our scenario. So let me explain first of all, what is this tab? Tab is a limited, time-limited passcode that is generated randomly. So it's not like how the user basically picks. This is random generation. So it is stronger than passwords. Like other authentications method, organization can also define who can use through either by specifying the users or groups. So they can control that who can use in their organizations. Organization can also control the duration of this tab. And the duration will be between 10 minutes to 30 days. So they can basically control that, how long this tab can be used. Admin can also decide if temporary access pass can be used one time or multiple times. When one-time access pass has been issued, user can sign in to tab only one time, and once it's used, it expires. For the multi-use access pass, as that word defined, you can use it multiple times, and it will expire based on the duration that is set by your admins or IT. The tab creation can and the management can be done through the programmatic way using API, as your organization can incorporate tab in their new hire process. Tab does not require Premier features. It supports the smart lockout. So when the tab is used for authentications and in case of brute force attack using the tab, user account will be locked out based on the default configurations. Since tab satisfies MFA requirement, user can register passwordless credentials without MFA. So that solves our chicken and egg situations where Dimitri explained, where today's in order to do the passwordless method, you have to have a do the register MFA or have a device that is been trusted. So this resolves our issue using the tab. So tab can, as you can see, the tab can help onboard the strongs and passwordless authentications, such as Authenticator app and the FIDO key. With many customer interest and request, Microsoft now going to extend the tab functionality for Windows for Hello and join the device to us already in few weeks, about I think end of May or somewhere in couple of weeks. But before incorporating tab in your organizations should think about how to securely deliver this temporary access pass to their end users and validate their identity. So let's look at in the next slides, the ID verifications process that Dimitri will explain.
Thank you, Pinky. Well, tab is still amazing, right? So we're going to discuss tab more, but right now, remember in the middle of a slide, we got this green ID verification process icon. And we said that this is a end customer responsibility to run it. Well, as I said, there is a good news. There are good news. There is good news. NIST special publication 863A defines this process amazingly well. And this actually a picture from this document. Well, what is important for us on this session, right? Our new employee comes to the start for this ID verification process without this real linkage between user and user account. Then user goes through the list of questionnaire, like this document explains many levels of security can be applied to create this linkage. And at some point, this ID verification process is going to give us this green light. Okay, well, we have evidence this user is real and we can proceed. We can proceed. And what is the next step is going to be for this ID verification process? Obviously, we can configure this ID verification process programmatically query Azure Active Directory to get the tab for the user, temporary access pass for the user. Because tab supports Microsoft Graph and PowerShell commandlets, you can programmatically request and manage tabs from your ID verification services. What else on this screen? Well, besides well-known My Security Info resource that our new employee can use to onboard, for example, FIDO2 key. We said, well, you don't want to mess with passwords, just onboard your Microsoft Authenticator app in a passwordless mode using your tab. Remember, tab is time sensitive and it could be issued for the user like for a few minutes and one time. So it's not exactly password, and it's not exactly passwordless authentication. It's sensitive thing that would help us to onboard strong authentication method. And two more things that just Pinky introduced. Week ago, we announced that in a few weeks, you can use a tab to configure Windows Hello and to join device to Azure Active Directory. Okay, going back to this pilot scenario, what proof of concept we deployed for our real customer. Well, step number 0, of course, this human resources collects information from the end employee, put it in a human resource system, creates profile, exports user account to on-premises Active Directory. Remember, they have this hybrid user. And what is a bonus, using this passwordless methods, we can put some crazy password, hundreds randomly generated characters. So scrambled password, nobody knows this password, nobody cares, and it's close to be like unbreakable. And user is not going to use it. Remember, user works remote, no VPNs, and just uses Azure Active Directory. So in advance, step number 0, user is going to be synced to Azure Active Directory. And because we're going to do this demo, I'm going to accomplish this step number 0 right now. I'm going to just manually create this user. Let's do new user. Username is going to be Gerard Baker. So G Baker. And the password, I'm going to use something like this. Well, who cares? Because we are going to passwordless world, and password still mandatory attributes, right? So let's create this user and push synchronization, so it will sync before we'll continue this demo. Let them sync. Done step number 0. Now our new employee came to first day to start this position and go as usual, as we explained, through this ID verification process. When ID verification services is going to be happy to create this linkage, ID verification service is going to request a tab for the user. This tab is going to be presented somehow to the user, right? Well, probably it's some web interface, or we can send it through email, or even in advance, theoretically, we can send this tab to the user through regular mail. So I can say, hey, this tab is going to be active on June 1st from 9 to 10 your time zone. Please accomplish your onboarding at this time frame. Well, that's the option. In our case, let's just pretend we show this tab on the screen to this user, and user uses tab to onboard passwordless strong authentication method. Simple, no passwords involved, and this new employee is going to use applications that are published in the corporate Azure Active Directory. So there is no reason to have access to password at all. Well, we came to the first demo, and demo would show this scenario. First, and we accomplished this line, on-premises user created with scrambled password. We pretend we accomplish ID verification process. And now our ID verification services is eligible to generate and deliver to the user an access pass. That Pinky is going to show us how to do it. I'll play for the end employee, new employee, onboarding Microsoft Authenticator app in a passwordless mode. Pinky, back to you.
All right, so let's see if just wanted to make sure, yes, my screen is there. All right, let's make sure the user is even synced over Azure AD. And as we can see, since this is a new user, there should not be any authentication method is rolled out. So as you can see, nothing is existed. So now we are going to create the temporary access pass using the PowerShell. So we will use, in our case, PowerShell to generate the tab for this users. And like I explained earlier, you can use the API method to generate the tab. So here's the user UPN, and we will be generating one-time use only. So let's create, and I'm going to run this script, and hopefully it's not going to give us a problem. Well, I'm
No
getting
problem at all. It will work.
it's working. All right. And as you can see, that is generated. So as explained, the admins need to, and the organizations need to figure out how to securely give this tab to end users, right? Because as you can see that end user needs to have that tab in order to onboard the passwordless authentications method for their accounts. Since it is a one time, so there are time limitations. So when you use the one-time access pass, the time limit is within the 10 minutes and user needs to register and complete the registrations for that passwordless method. So let's look at how Dimitri is going to basically use that access pass. So in our scenario, we use the private team private chatting, and I provided that access pass to him. So he will use that to basically onboard the authenticator app. But in organizations, they need to find out the method and validate the end users that it is the right person that they are providing. It can be like a phone call or some other method to provide that tab to them. So let's look at Dimitri, and he will show us how to
Yep.
use this one.
Thank you, Pinky. Right, I play for this user. I got access to this tab, and I know my user principal name. This is Microsoft Authenticator. I'm going to onboard it in a passwordless mode. And remember, like we always were using like scan QR code. I can sign in. I can sign in with this user which has a tab in the active scope. So this my user G Baker, right? And the system is smart enough to see, hey, this user has an active tab. Remember, but it would survive for next 10 minutes, and it's just one time used. So now I have this challenge to type this tab by right way because it was not generated by a human being, right? We remove this this challenge with picking up predictable password, but now I need to carefully type it. Give me a sec. And Pinky, if you can check if I'm doing correct typing, that would be great.
Sure.
Looks like I'm in. So I'm going to allow this device registration because passwordless mode works with a smartphone, which is going to be part of Azure Active Directory. So they negotiated security channel, and inside of this channel, it would be allowed for the end user to accomplish passwordless authentication. So yeah, that's a result, account added. What I have here, phone sign in without password, two-step verification, right? Classical push, and one-time password. I'm in. So probably we can test it out. So let's open some browser and go to my apps and see if user would be successfully signed in with without password. I'm going to open browser in a private mode and go to ak.ms/my apps. So this is Gerard Baker. User knows UPN. So we're going to be challenged with MFA. Sec. So it shows my geography, and I was yeah, like about right, and it requires to type this number, right? So it quite minimize probability about successful phishing, and looks like Azure Active Directory is satisfied with this, right? So we could successfully accomplish user onboarding without passwords and all. We brought device to Azure Active Directory without password, and this device now helps user to use it in a passwordless mode. So as Pinky explained us, this device is going to be part of public key infrastructure, and if somehow my new employee is going to go to the portal which looks like Microsoft authentication portal, but not Microsoft authentication portal, what we will get, this authenticator does not have any trust with this new portal. And user even doesn't know password, right? So like we are secured here. And this is a very first scenario, right? We can move to the next scenario we will discuss here. Pinky, please.
All right. So in this demo number 2, user basically lost their device that was registered for the strong authentications method. So when I say lost, means user do have the device in the possessions. It's not the user lost where they cannot find that device. In that case, it will be a secure incident, and organizations need to revoke user access in order for somebody bad actor to get hands on that device. In this scenario, user do have the device, but it is broken. So user cannot use the device to do the strong authentications method. Again, it came to the IT desk saying, hey, what should I do? Do not have a device. IT gave it to them. FIDO key. Here, there you use this FIDO key and then onboard that as your strong authentications device. So in this scenario, we will look at that how the tab, we can use the tab to onboard the FIDO key devices here. That so let me show you. And we're going to use the same users, basically. So before we even go, let's look at what happened to our temporary access pass that I generated earlier. As we can see that it is being used. So that cannot be reused by the users. And this is the authenticator method that Dimitri registered for his iPad. So let's create the other temporary access pass for the FIDO key. This time we're going to do like 15 minutes, and it is going to be only one time use. So let's add it. And as you can see, it's created. Once you hit OK, you will not able to go back and get the access pass. You have to regenerate that. And admin do not have access to look at what it was basically configured. So if you hit OK before copying that, or admin did before that, they need to go back there in order to do that. So now through our ID verification process, in our case, we are using our team chat, private team chats, and sending that across to Dimitri so he can basically onboard the FIDO key. So let's take a look at that, how we can use now this step to onboard our strong and phishing resistance method FIDO key there.
Well, thank you, Pinky. Thanks a lot. I just highlighting as one time, this is not security related incident we're discussing right now. Our user came to work and said, well, you know, something happened with my smartphone. It's drawn out, like it doesn't exist anymore. Well, what should I do? And we'll say, well, don't worry. We are going to have you continue to work with FIDO2. Here's a new tab to onboard this FIDO2 device. So we like to continue to live in this passwordless world. So user is going to go to hit my security info, right? To onboard next another one strong factor authentication method. So user is, as you remember, G Baker. Now I have luxury to copy paste this tab was delivered by support, and I'm going to be in. So one thing to highlight again, this tab is very time sensitive, right? So we even like support could write it down on a piece of paper, because that's it. I'm in this tab doesn't work anymore. It was used, and Pinky generated representing support. She generated this tab for a very short period of time. So that is a good bridge to come to onboard this strong authentication method. Okay, I have some from my support team. I have a FIDO2 compatible device. I'd like to add this device here. Security key. I'm going to put this device into USB slot. And the system is going to be ready to onboard this security key. Remember what is going to happen. This FIDO2 compatible device is going to play as a cryptographic service provider, and it will generate key pair. Public part will go to my Azure Active Directory tenant, requesting certificate creation, and private part would stay on the device, never leave. Like it was generated by this cryptographic service provider, and it's on this device. So to access to this private key, I need to have something. Well, it could be face recognition, could be tampering. In my case, device is quite cheap. This uses PIN, but I need to know this PIN to decrypt private key to sign these nodes that identity provider is going to send me. Okay, let's create this PIN. And the gesture is required. I need to give him proof I'm here. Done, onboarded. So give him friendly name, Gerard's key, and key is here. Well, let's test it, right? Let's test it. And we would like, besides just to show that, okay, passwordless authentication still works, we would like to show one feature that has named most recently used method. What was the latest, most recently used method? Well, it was a Microsoft Authenticator, which actually doesn't exist anymore. This device doesn't exist. So I'm going to try to sign in to my apps. So here's aka.ms/my apps, and my user which is G Baker, and system remembers. Give me a sec. System remembers the last successful authentication method. There's one time. So this Gerard Baker. And I'm choosing to go with a security key. And it says, okay, well, now we are going to send you these nodes. You'd like to sign in out. Let's sign in, and I'm going to put here this PIN, secret PIN. I know this PIN, and this PIN never travels through the network, right? So this PIN decrypts the private key, and I need to give this consent to sign in, touching. Okay. Let's try again, see if this most recent used method would work. I go again to aka.ms my apps. It's going to be again this G Baker. Oh, not yet. Well, of course I can sign in with this key, decrypting this private key and doing this gesture. So what bottom line from this demo, right? The user lost device, right? And the device, we have warranty that device destroyed. And user came and said how we can proceed to be passwordless, and we happen to onboard FIDO2 security key. And we have another one scenario. Pinky, back to you.
Yes, and that is the lot of company has asked for it. So in this scenario, basically user requires to temporarily bypass the MFA. A lot of company ask for this one that, hey, we need to temporarily bypass this MFA for that end user Many third party like Okta do provide this functionality, and even our own product, on-prem product, did provide this functionality. Can we have that? So Tap do provide that functionality, as we all know now, is because Tap does satisfies the MFA requirement by our Microsoft, so you can use in this scenario. So in this scenario, end users have the possessions of the device. Keep in mind that user has the device, it's not lost. If it is lost and user do not have a possessions of the device, it's a secure incident. In our case, user do have that device, but temporarily it's not available. It could be maybe it's not charged, is dead, or they left it at their friend's house and going to pick up later in the evenings. But meanwhile, some sort of urgent work came and they need to sign in, and they need to sign in without the MFA. How that can be done in there? So in this scenario, basically admin. So let me show you. Admin is going to create, and we will be using the same user here. Admin can create the tab for whole day. Basically, this is converts to 480 minutes to 8 hours, and they can choose multi-time use. So user can, throughout the 8 hours, can use this tab without their MFA to access the work and do any work that needs to be done before they go and pick up their device from their friend's house or charge their device to use and do that. After 8 hours, this tab will be expired, and user will not able to use that tab. So as you can see that tab can be used to bypass, temporary bypass for MFA. So this was all our demo, end of all our demo. And as you can see that tab can be used in multiple scenario where they can onboard their phishing resistance method for their end users. So next, let's look at the monitoring and auditing for those signing log. An admin can basically do the analysis of their tab uses in the authentication method. Back to you, Dimitri.
Great, thank you, Pinky. Great, thank you. Yeah, just a couple of words about this previous demo. Indeed, when you present Microsoft Azure Active Directory multi-factor authentication, later or early is going to be question, hey, we need temporary bypass MFA. How to? And now this feature is here, right? So you can allow, and user would say, well, you know, please don't punish me. My smartphone is alive. It's just in friend's house. I'm going to grab it this evening. Let me work. And that is a great opportunity to satisfy requirements for strong factor authentication. Microsoft done great job auditing and monitoring events around temporary access pass. So on this screen, this screenshot for this G Baker from audit logs, filtered by core the directory services, user management, and user update. And we see this full information about this tab on this screen, right? So we have this start time, we have this end time, we have how information how many times this passcode can be used, right? Just single one time, and we have unique identifier. So this using this unique identifier, we can follow how this tab was used, right? We can query sign-in logs. We can query audit logs. What was achieved with the help of this tab. So when tab is going to be used, it was one-time using, right? So we have this information populated in old value, and new value says pass usage equals used. Done. We're out of this scope of the broken tab. So in sign-in logs, this again, Gerard Baker sign in with authentication details, temporary access pass, and this ID. Look at this. This is amazing because now we can track what user done with this temporary access pass with this ID. Well, there are some ideas about queries could be interesting. Remember, to get this temporary access pass, user accomplished successfully this ID verification process, which is quite complex. And we gave to this user the tab, which is security sensitive. And user did not use it. Why is that? Like maybe you would like to highlight this in the reporting, like maybe something wrong with our system. Maybe we can't deliver this tab to the end user. Maybe something with on the level of security. So I'd like to know if tab was not used in a time frame. Well, we can audit everything that happened with this tab. For example, tab was used to add, remove strong authentication details. Like we can query, hey, this tab was working from 12 to 1, and in this period of time, what audit activities do we have for this user? What sign-in activities do we have? Finally, if you have failures, well, as Pinky mentioned, the tab is covered with user smart logout. So if someone is going to try to brute force it, it would fail. It would lock a user account based on your configured threshold of failures. But remember, this tab is time sensitive, and if we are out of time frame, out of scope of this tab, this endpoint is not available. You can't try to brute force user with a tab when user doesn't have tab. So if someone was trying to brute force user, probably there is some leaked internal information, right? Like tab is active for 10 minutes. What? How they know that they need to attack us in these 10 minutes? Well, that probably can be a very red flag for the security. That about logs, and just a couple of words about amazing Workbook. First of all, we would like you to use Workbooks. To use Workbooks, you need to stream your logs to Azure Log Analytics, and then your these Workbooks are going to be available for you. One of them, which was moved to be generally available on January 15, has name Authentication Prompts Analysis. And this book helps a lot, Workbook helps a lot slicing information about sign-ins in context of type of authentication. Well, on this screen particular, I filtered out authentication attempts with FIDO2 security key, passwordless phone sign-in, and tab. So all three are passwordless. And the tool gives you opportunity to slice it with tons of different characteristics to understand the trends and get insights from your sign-in picture. At this point, we are ready to conclusion slide. Pinky, back to you.
Thank you. So throughout the session, you heard us, passwordless authentications. So highly recommend. It is the best authentications method and enable the MFA to protect against phishing, since it does secure through the public and private key. So highly recommend use the passwordless authentications method and onboard user to use this to protect their privacy. If the organizations is already using the passwordless authentications, consider scrambling the user password. As you saw, the Dimitri created crazy passwords, but user didn't even have to use that, right? To secure your environment from some of the known attack, like a brute force or password spray attack. As you see in the throughout the demo, multiple demo for Tab, how Tab can be leveraged using different scenario and closing some of your gap for onboarding user MFA. Azure AD Workbook, it's a great way to get a lot of statistics and the informations in your environment instead of looking individual. So highly recommend start using it, because our product group do create so many in this area to make the admin's life easier. And at the last, hopefully you enjoy these sessions and you find it useful, and we'll be able to answer any questions that you have.
If you have any questions in the meantime, please put them in the chat. I'm just going to quickly hop on and say, if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear what you have to say. If you have any topics you're interested in, please fill out our survey. For this particular event, it's 15705. And we'll maybe give it one more minute. If there are no more questions, then we'll conclude the session. Since there doesn't seem to be any questions, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you to our speakers. Until next time, have a great one.
Irina, thanks a lot for having us.